Hi everybody, I'm Sergio with Mobility Direct, and here we have a Victory three-wheel scooter. I believe this is a Victory 9, Victory 10. Customer brought it in without the shroud cover, so I don't have the label in front of me, but it's a Victory model, 710 Victory frame, and the batteries were connected here, one on each side. You can see each one has a power connector, and these power connectors plug right into the receiver in the middle. Problem is, one of these receivers, if you come in closely, you could see has sunken in, and it's no longer being held in by the housing underneath this whole contraption. So in order to fix this, we're going to actually have to take this whole piece out, get underneath that connector, and see why it's sinking in there. See how this one sticks out? And again, these batteries, the terminal connectors just go right in, black and white. So there's no wrong way to really do it if you just match up the colors. Now, in order to take this off, we are going to have to take off some screws down here and one back here, and then see what happens. So let's get started. Let's start off with a Phillips head screwdriver. Take off that screw on the left. Don't lose your screws. And there we are. So at this point, we should be able to remove this cover. And problem is, there's not a lot of wiggle room in here, so you have to be very careful. And if you look in there, you're going to see that the main power cables for the batteries go right underneath the floorboard into the controller. And if you look closely in there, let me get my phone camera light on here. See the two connectors in there. The two connectors in there are basically held on by these screws. So what I'm going to do is first undo those screws.
There we go.
All right, so I've got my needle nose pliers holding the nut, and I'm going to start to unscrew. Got one nut and one screw, and I just heard that little piece fall underneath the scooter. Here's a little piece that holds it. Now I'm going to take the other one out. Got to reach in there with the needle nose pliers. The longer the pliers, the better in this case, because it is hard to get in there and grab that nut with the short pair. Let's see a little bit better there. All right, let's see here. All right, so that was not easy to do, but we got the second one out, and there's the second clip. So now we can begin to reinstall it correctly. What I'm going to do is detach the front half and the rear half to give me a little more room.
Rolling.
All right, so to get this going, we're going to need to do a couple things here. Number one, on these connectors, there's a little tongue and groove system. So if you look at the other one, you're going to see that the bottom side coming from in here, if you look in here, the other one that's connected, you can see the bottom is this side, not this side. So one side has just an open end for the terminal connectors to squeeze through, but the bottom side has this little rounded edge hook kind of piece on both sides. You see that little rounded edge? Now those rounded edges basically are going to hook up into this female part of the same kind of rounded edge. So find the little part that sticks out, which is the male part that slides into the female part, and you'll see what I'm saying here. If I just slide it in from below, it stays on. So what you want to do is basically what I just did there, and pay attention to how they're connected. So I'm going to go ahead and slide them both on. You want to, again, really analyze the way the correct one is on there already from the bottom up. You're going to need some flashlights and some really small fingers to get in there. Now the good thing is these are double-sided, so if one side of your connector happens to break, you can use the other side. So there we go. Okay, so once they're both on, you can fish it back in there, and it might be very difficult to do, but basically you're gonna have to fish it in there, push it back through, and then get those screws back in. So apologize for the really bad camera angles here, but there's really not a lot we can do as far as getting better angles. It's just a very, very tight space to do this job. So once you've got it through, it might help to pull it up rather. Then what you want to do is get your screws, put them through so that it's kind of being held in place there. Then what you're going to want to do is attempt to get those nuts on the screws. And you're probably going to need a second set of hands to do this. All right, so this is going to be a pretty tough job, but I've got the connector coming through here. And what we've decided to do, since this is almost an impossible thing to do, once these things are bad, it's hard to fix it. So what we're going to do is we're going to reverse the orientation of the nut and the screw. We're going to let the screw come up, and we're going to put the nut on top. That's going to allow this job to go through a little bit more smoothly, hopefully. All right. So, we've got the screw pointed out. If you can see it on the camera, hopefully.
No camera.
Flatten it out.
Right about there.
Let me loosen first. Flatten it out. There you go, almost. A little more level. There it is. That's it. All right, so it's secure. And now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna grab it, and I'm gonna get back in there from the bottom side. Remember, we did say this is not easy. And we're tightened. So now we've got one side on. It's going to be a lot easier to go in with the other side. And because these connectors don't really have a wide connector, it's not going to get in the way. You can actually see that it's going in just fine, even though that bolt is now on the top instead of the screw head. So this is our way of fixing this problem. You could, of course, replace this entire piece here, but that would obviously cost more money. So this is a more inexpensive way to solve this problem. All right, so we're gonna fish the next screw through the bottom and hope that it doesn't pop the clip out, which it might do on you. So be prepared.
It's already through.
All right, so it's tight there on that side. All right. They're back in. And basically what we're gonna do now is screw this back on and test everything out to make sure it works. We should be okay. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and put the batteries in here before we secure anything, because if it's not working, the last thing we wanna do is have to reconnect everything. Disconnect everything and then troubleshoot it again. So I've got my connector in. I'm gonna go ahead and plug the battery connectors into each side. There's one. Here's the second one. We're connected, and we have power. So that's good. The motor's not connected, so obviously it's beeping. All right, so we've got the connector in. You can see the nuts here had to be readjusted. One of them was in a little crooked, so we went back in. Didn't bother recording that part, but just make sure when you reattach the nuts and the bolts in there that they're in good, nice and snug. So we're going to go ahead and reinstall our 3 screws here that go into the frame to secure this power connector block with the fuse built into it. There's one. Gonna come onto this side over here to get the second hole. That's in. Last but not least, going through the back here. And we're all in. So I'm gonna bring the motor back. Keep your products clean, folks. This is bad, okay? This is a great example of how not to keep your mobility scooter. Full of dirt, full of debris, connections are gonna start rusting out. We've got rust all over the screws, oxidation on the frame. Anyway, this is not a mobility scooter cleanliness and tidiness tutorial. This is a repair video, so let's go ahead and move forward. Now, because this is a 3-wheel unit, when you're connecting the front to the back, you may need to take hold of the steering wheel so it doesn't turn. Can be a little bit more of a challenge with the 3-wheel heavy-duty scooters, but basically what you want to do is hear this thing click once you've got it on. There we go. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and put the batteries back on. And now we should see that these connectors are working like they're supposed to, keeping everything nice and tight. So there's not going to be any power loss, intermittent connection on the 2 12-volt batteries. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. I'm going to connect this battery now. That connector is not sinking in anymore. It's nice and tight, and we didn't have to replace the whole connector. Customer didn't have to spend a small fortune doing the entire thing. Now, I will say that it looks like this customer, when he replaced his batteries, did not fish the wires through here properly, so I'm going to do him a favor and fix that for him. These little holders, little handles, they flex, so you can take them out. Just be careful you don't break the little plastic pieces that hold them in. They are made out of a cheap plastic and they can break.
Yep.
All right, so we've got it connected, batteries are on, scooter is working, and all we got to do now is just secure the buckle to make sure that these batteries don't wiggle around too much. And at this point, everything is good to go. Connectors are in. We just need to put the shroud cover on. But again, the scooter is working. Turn the keys. We're not getting any beeps or flash codes. And if I go ahead and hit the throttle, scooter is moving. So we have successfully fixed the scooter. Took some work. I'm going to be honest, that was not easy. Those little power blocks are very difficult to work with because of how deep they are. But everything's on back order right now, so we were able to save the customer some time waiting for a replacement part and the money. Didn't have to replace that power block. My recommendation is to just be very careful when connecting and disconnecting those battery harnesses, because as you can see, they're made out of plastic, and if you go in too tight, too tough, you could break it. Anyway, I'm Sergio. I hope you found this video helpful. Keep in mind that we offer these products for sale tax-free. Shipping is free at mobilitydirect.com. Make sure you request a free catalog by clicking on the green button at the top of the page that says free catalog on our website. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.